today. And talk. There we go. All right. One more step. There we go. Where am I at here? Which one do I want? Oh, finally. So weird. There we go. Okay. Ooh, look at this. We're doing great. Updated the attendance for yesterday. I did indeed. Thank you so much for participating, all you Lab 3 people, because that has put us all right together. And that way we can work today on creating our new virtual machines from our 2-clone machine. And then, don't look at me, still marked as absent. I did it just an hour ago. Maybe it's going to take some time for the system to update. Check it tomorrow and see, because maybe they'll take a whole day to update it. But I did it this morning. And so it's out of my scope. Yeah, it's out of my scope. But these are the things that, you know, when we're offering these services, that's our space. We them now. All right. These are things that users find frustrating, and the things that we just need to try to keep that frustration to a minimum. Part of our job. I'm not going to go any farther on that topic, but let's turn to the topic at hand. All right. What we want to do today is get our network set up. We can't have a network until we have a bunch of machines that want to connect and communicate with each other. All right. And we've talked about the necessary background, the theory. And now it's time to work with that in practice. All right. So we're all in the same space now with the theory, so we can go ahead and spend today looking at this practical part of getting the cloning done, getting the basic configuration for all of our machines, make sure we got a shakedown tomorrow, and I'm sorry, later today or Monday, as the case may be. And then there's only a couple of small steps that we need to do to configure the specific services for each one of our servers. And then that's what we're going to have that we call the base system. Make a little video of it and put it up on Moodle. All right, just to make sure that everybody, again, is kind of at the same point, so that when we start the second half of our semester, all right, we're ready to move on to the next phase, which is looking at all of the interesting things that we can do with a network system in terms of providing different kinds of services or enhancing the services that we have set up the very baseline for. All right, we can move beyond that and make them nicer, make them more capable, make them suit the interests of particular communities of users inside our environment. But we'll talk about that later. What we need to do now is just, you know, stay on target, keep an eye on the prize, and that is to get our network up and working. So, push this over a little bit. I'm going to turn off the camera save a little bandwidth. I've got my virtual machines. I've got some sample ones here started for a backup, but I'm going to try to go with the videos because the videos are always consistent. There's a couple of things. Again, just want to make sure that we've got the balance of theory and practice here, because we need to understand that we need to be familiar with the theory. Right? We need to be familiar with the theory so that we understand why we are doing what we're doing when we do our configurations. And a lot of this is already partly done, but the important things, the fundamental things, the things that you can carry forward to any Linux installation, these are the things that we're going to focus on in terms of what we have to do to get this system properly running. Okay, so let's start with mytiny.net. All right. Now, over here on the menu, all right, getting started, these are things that we simply assume that you have finished already. All right. Get your virtual machine, get VirtualBox installed, get your first virtual machine created and configured to this point of first things first. Okay. In order to do that, you have to get it to boot from its hard disk. That's what creating VMs is about. All right. First things first is 6 or 8 things that need to be done. And if we do these right, it means that we don't have to do it 5 times. If we do it once on the 2-clone machine, it's ready for all of the others. Otherwise, we're going to have to go back and take some remedial action to configure each individual server. And that makes life too complicated. All right. The system admin is just some basic background. These are things that we will talk about as time goes on, but they're all in one place right here. Log files, changing CDs, shared folders. Again, these are points of reference that we will be coming back to over time. What our mission today is here, server roles, and the first one here, configuring. That's the page I've got up right here, right now. All right. Key concepts, DHCP and DNS. These are things that we're going to explore because parts of these, most of these, I think, actually, most of the points here are things that we have talked about already, right? But again, they're points of reference that we can come back to. And the DHCP and DNS, that's what we talked about in theory more recently. And this is what we're going to be looking at in practice, right? Today and on Monday, right? To make sure that we've got all of this configured, set up, and actioned properly, right? So our network is going to work as we expect it to. Inside our pre-configuration, there are some assumptions about the configuration, all right? And that is a little bit of overhead, but we need to work to the expectations, all right? So that we can take advantage of what has already been done. So, also here on Moodle, all right? when we go to the TinyNet, oh, wait, just slip down here just for a minute. There's this big table here, all right, that says the role and the app on the server, all right, the protocol that it uses, the standard port that it uses to communicate, all right, who's the client, and what's the task, all right? Who's the client in terms of, first, the app, all right, and second, that app on which of our servers, all right, and what its role is in the network. And again, this is something that we will learn through experience, okay? But this is the overview. This is the overview of what each of these picture guides are there for, all right, on each of our servers in our abstract boxes and arrows diagram here that lays out our essential network architecture. This is the pictograph, and this is the text-based table, if you like. TinyNet-based system videos. We'll get to this next week and the week after, the all normal baseline. Once we get all of our servers up and configured, this is the reference to come back and say, yes, everything is in order, all right? Or something doesn't look right and it might need some attention. This part, we assume that today, we assume that you already have this done, because this is where we're at today, is cloning our virtual machines, okay? The gateway takes a little bit of extra pre-configuration because it's the center point in our network. All right? We talked about the idea of subnets, and machines that are on the same subnet can communicate directly. Machines that are on different subnets need to cross the gateway, right? And that means the gateway needs to have an interface for each subnet. And since the gateway handles our name, DNS, and DHCP, that's this app here called DNSMask, we need to make sure that that's all properly configured, right? So that our network is going to work as we expect it to. Oops. There we go. So just a few extra things here for the gateway. All the rest are exactly the same. All right. And again, a couple of extra videos down here, totally concerning the gateway, the DHCP, and the DNS. After that, we move to configuring the mail. I'm going to do this step by step, one piece at a time, so that we don't have too many things going on, and we can focus on getting each piece working properly by itself, and then add another one on top, step by step, building it up, enhancing the whole system. All right. Then we can configure the web server. Again, there's not too much to actually do in these, but you just need to understand what needs to be done and why it's working that way, right? And then finally, it is the LDAP server. I don't think there's any video about that one. Oh, but never mind. There's not too much that needs to be done there beyond things that we've been doing already. So let's put this one here. All right, now I know I mentioned this in theory when we talked about DHCP, and this is where it becomes important in practice. The idea here is that when the gateway comes up on the network, it's going to be okay because we use static IP address assignment for the gateway. That's to prevent the problem of what comes first, all right? Since the gateway runs our DHCP server, all right, we need to have it fully configured, all right? So that when the web server gets started, the LDAP server, mail server, when they get started, they can send their DHCP requests and it will get answered by the gateway, and the gateway will assign the IP address and the other critical network parameters, the default route, default name server, okay, being first amongst those. So we need to get that one set up, but one of the things about VirtualBox, it's a feature of VirtualBox, is that it has an internal DHCP server. Now, again, when this mail server comes up, all it knows is its MAC address because that's part of the hardware interface. And so it has to send out a broadcast message, and if it gets more than one response, it has to choose which one to send the DHCP request message to, saying, yes, please, could I have this one? I want to use it, all right? And usually what happens is that it's a very simple thing that, excuse me, very simple thing that the first one in is the one that's chosen for the DHCP request message. And since we're running this in a VirtualBox environment, that means the VirtualBox internal DHCP server has, you know, milliseconds of time advantage over that gateway DHCP server. So we need to make sure this one is off because this one doesn't use the proper pools of IP addresses for our subnets. Okay? So first thing to do is get to your VirtualBox here. All right, let me just poke this up a little bit. All right. This is a global setting, so you need to use the tools here and network, all right? And make sure that this is exactly your configuration here, all right? This IP address is one of the assumptions that is in the configuration file. This guy needs to be blank, empty, right? There's a check mark in this one. You got problems on the way, all right? Normally, when you install VirtualBox, This is the default IP address, all right? But sometimes, and I don't know why, VirtualBox will have a different IP address here, all right? If you need to, you can just slide down the page here a little bit, all right? And configure the adapter manually, all right? Put in the IP address 192.168.56.1. That's important because of our subnets and our net masks, okay? And you should be able to configure that and just apply it right here if it's necessary. But most of the time, this is going to be already done, all right? Because this is the default for VirtualBox for almost all installations. Let me just see if I can pull a little more chat over here. One nine two dot 168.56.1 is a must. All right. If there is something else, change it. Okay. Now, one last thing. After making, if you make any changes, let me just put this together, let's do this way. If you make any changes to the host-only networking, exit VirtualBox and restart. Now, perhaps I'm being a little bit leaning toward the safe side here, but you know, sometimes people have told me, and sometimes I've actually seen this myself, is that when I make a change here, right, sometimes it doesn't stick, right? I've had VirtualBox installed with a different IP address here, a 178 or a 10.10 or some such thing, and it when I change it down here and apply it, it doesn't seem to stick until I do a file, exit, and restart VirtualBox. Okay, so best advice, you know, working for safety and reliability is if you make a change in this screen, all right, exit VirtualBox, restart it, double check it, okay, to make sure that that change will stick for when you restart it next time. Usually it works fine, all right? But a little bit on the safe side, if you make changes in the screen, exit VirtualBox, restart it, all right? Before you do anything, make sure it looks exactly like this one. Okay. So that's our first thing that we need to check. Let's jump over here to some PowerPoint for a minute. Old guy from the 70s. A continuous quest into the unknown. That's what makes this part, I think, the hardest part of SNA is getting accustomed to the environment and accustomed to working with the operating systems and virtual machines. But we've got good ways to deal with that. All right. This part should be done. All right. This is what we've just been looking at here. One interface for each subnet. We're going to get to that very quickly here. Paths, we talked about that a little bit, especially in the context of first things first. All right. Just reading that a lot of people like just putting everything on their desktop and using search to find things, which, you know, is quite okay in that graphical user interface world that we live in so often when we are simple, normal users. But when we're system and network administrators, we need to get closer to the operating system, and we need to get down into the file system. Yeah, I mean, if we were doing Windows networking, we'd be all about this part here with program files and all of this part for Windows itself. All right. We're doing Linux networking, so we've got a different tool. All right. But the principle is exactly the same. The MC interface, again, just to quickly say, somebody asked me about this the other day, just to make sure that we know, right? If you're going to switch from side to side here, use Tab, all right? And then you can enter to go deeper into a directory. All right? If you like that kind of Windows interface, you can get your tree up with F9 on the menu here, all right? Switch back and forth between these two views if that is a style that you prefer. Symbolic links, all right, and permissions. That's the first thing first that we need to make sure is done right. Again, a little bit of orientation on the user interface. Okay, but when we create a symbolic link, it comes up with a little arroba in front, and when we highlight it, it's going to look blue until we highlight it. And if we highlight it and look down here, we can see where this symlink points to. All right. So just a little quick reference reminder about that part of the MC user interface. Setting permissions. All right. Again, there's three that are not normally used, but we do use one of these in one case that we'll get to in a minute. All right. But the thing about this is these green star ones have their execute bits set. All right. Execute, search by owner, by group, by others. All right. That's what gives them an odd number in the numeric representation of the permissions. All right, because read is an even number, write is an even number, exec is 1. So that means that if the execute bits are on, those permissions look like an odd number here. All right. These are pretty standard set of permissions, right? Group permissions in Linux are rarely used, and so we either set group permissions to match the owner, or perhaps more commonly, we set the group permissions to match the rest of the world here, right? But again, group permissions are only important in special circumstances. Most of the time, we're only really concerned about the owner and the others. Now, here's that one special case. And, oops, I think we'll, ouch, sorry about that. I think we might need to just quickly check this in our 2-clone machine. All right. Need to make sure that this one is done right. All right. It's just to go to var and run, but don't hit enter and go inside var run and try to set or check these permissions just using the ... Okay. You want to make sure that it's just var up here. Run is just highlighted. Then hit F9 and make sure that all of these boxes are X'd in. Special directory permission that says anyone can create a file right to this directory, but when the sticky bit is set, the operating system enforces only the owner, the one who created this file, can delete it. So anyone can create a file, but you can only delete your own. And we use that permission, again, under special circumstances, and we've got a couple of times that we'll see it. So all I'm going to say is, if this one isn't done right, it's going to come back and bite you later on. We'll check it in just a second on our 2-clone machine. All right, when we come to cloning, I just want to point this out. All right. In VirtualBox, this is under File and Preferences here on the main menu. Now, one thing, all right, this is the default machine folder. Now, you can see that I put mine on my drive D partition, okay? You can put these anywhere, and a lot of people will say, you know, I'm running a little bit out of space, what do I do? All right, you can put them on removable drives, but you just have to be careful because Windows can give a removable drive a different letter sometimes when it mounts it, right? And VirtualBox, for whatever reason, puts in that full path, including the drive letter. So sometimes it may come up and say there's no virtual machines around because this drive letter is wrong. And so all you have to do is change it here, and then VirtualBox can go back and figure out exactly what it's supposed to be doing. All right, so that's the way to get your virtual machine stored someplace other than drive C. Also, if you get tired of VirtualBox nagging you about updates, oops. Yeah, look at that. How nice is that? Wait a minute, where did that one go? I thought it was here under Preferences and General, but it looks like it's not going to do that for me. Ah, there it is. Preferences and Update. You can uncheck this box when you get tired of the message about new versions being available. Okay, and again, my best advice is to, if you change the default machine folder, exit VirtualBox and then come back and check it again to make sure that setting sticks, all right? Doesn't get reverted to a default somehow. I don't know how it happens. I've just noticed that it does sometimes. Oh, another thing with VirtualBox, I really quickly get tired of these gray boxes at the top of my screen, all right? This round blue one makes it go away one time. This white one with the stripe makes it go away forever, all right? And so me, that's going to be one of my habits. One of the first things I do when a virtual machine starts up is try to get to this little weirdo stripe box here and turn that one off, because it just takes up my screen space. And I like my screen space. All right. So let's talk about what we need to do, all right, to take our 2-clone machine and create first the gateway machine. Once we get the gateway done, the rest of these are click, 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 and we're done. All right? Basically, I mean, arrow keys and enter a little bit, but these three are all the same, very, very fast. All right? The gateway is the only one that takes a little bit of extra effort to get fully configured. Okay? So, what do we got here? I know what it is. All right. Let me switch back to the TinyNet site here. All right. Now, this is the videos follow this closely here. All right. For clone a new VM, the role equals the gateway. All right. That is what we're covering here in the MyTinyNet. Wait a minute. Come down here. Server roles, configuring. All right, that's where we're at here. So, first thing we need to do is check our 2-clone machine and make sure that we've got the conf ISO image in that drive, not the base, but the conf. And again, this is going to save us time, because otherwise, if we left the base one in there, we have to change it here when we configure this one, then change it here, then change it here, then change it here. If we do it first on the 2-clone machine, it's already in the drive for the clones that we create. It seems like making a big deal out of nothing, doesn't it? Hey, what happened to my VirtualBox? Oh, now it's okay. Never mind. Hang on a minute. Let me get it restarted here. There you are. Slide that back along. Okay. So come back over here to my two clone machine, double check the settings. Linux 2, 3, 4, 32-bit, 32-bit operating system. We want to be accurate here, all right? Set the boot order to boot first from the hard disk, then from the optical disk, the ISO. You don't need any more base memory than this because that's what it's designed for, all right? We should have set a host-only adapter when we set up the two clone machines, so it's got this one here, all right? And here for the optical drive, you know, I always go to settings and storage, all right? And then I highlight this one, and then I can come over here and touch this circle icon, all right? It says choose a virtual optical drive. Ah, right. I think this is a little bit different than the one in the video, right? Because this is a small change from VirtualBox 5. You need to choose a disk file and then look around and find out where the MyTiConf ISO is that I downloaded from the MyTinyNet site, all right? Once I've used it once, okay, it stays here on the list, right? But if it's not showing up on the list here, you just need to get into the file interface here. You probably left it in downloads, all right? I moved mine over here, okay, and that's the one that's showing up on the list here. We want to make sure that the conf ISO is in the two clone machine so that when we clone it off to create our other servers, it's going to be automatically there already for us as well. All right. Anybody okay with that? No, wait. Let's move that up. What do those ISO do? ISO 9660 is the file system used for a CD-ROM, right? When, okay, we could burn the file to a physical, it's an image like a bitwise image in forensics, okay? And if we want to take this file and put it directly onto a physical CD-ROM, okay, we can. I don't know if I'm going to be able to actually see this, all right? The MyTi base is the one that's here in this picture, and that's not the one we need now. You need to highlight that one and get the MyTiConf ISO. Yep, this is what we're doing. We're going to use the CD to install the apps for us, all right? But you need to get up here, and this time it's time to get the conf ISO. Ooh, look at that, very slim, yeah? All right, but it's got all of the essential configuration files to transform our generic machine into a configured server, all right? And we just do this by picking the role off the menu All right, we've left it to be automated that way to cut down on the complications in our life, all right? Because I don't think that there's that much to learn from trying to deal with packages and dependencies and things like that. All right, we try to keep it a little bit simpler, which you'll see in the video, all right? See in the video, where's the video? All right. So the Clone a New VM video is here. So we start on that one. Let's run through the Clone a New VM process here. And then we'll take a little break and get on with getting the gateway set up, because that's the one where there's a little bit of extra complication. Okay, so what we're doing there is just what we've just been talking about, is get to the double check the system settings, all right? MyTie base, like somebody showed us in the picture on the chat, MyTie base is in this one. So we got to come over here and get the MyTie conf ISO from wherever we downloaded it, all right? And then make sure we have one host-only adapter, all right? Now, having one host-only adapter, and again, this part is going to change. Mine says Intel Pro 1000. Actually, I think that part should be the same, actually, all right? VirtualBox host-only Ethernet adapter, okay? We only want one adapter for all of our other servers, except the gateway, all right? So that's all good. We set it up here now. We will have it automatically on all of the ones that we clone off from here. So, machine, clone, all right? And again, you can create it wherever you like, all right? This is a global setting, it will stick, right? But you can put it wherever you like. The one important thing here, the hugely important thing here, is MAC address policy, all right? Keep an eye on that one as this video moves forward. Leave these two blank. Put in a proper name, all right? I name them for the ones in the diagram here, and I suggest that's going to be a little bit easier, all right? Because the documentation is kind of consistent about, especially about gateway. Sometimes it's called it mail host or mail server, either way, all right? But give it a meaningful name, because you'll feel much better in the future if you do that. All right? This one, pull this down and make sure that you say generate new MAC addresses for all network adapters, all right? Because, you know, again, VirtualBox uses virtual hardware, all right? The MAC address is part of the hardware definition, and it is 100% fundamental to have unique MAC address for every host on the network. So make sure you generate the new MAC address for all network adapters. And that's pretty much all that needs to be done. Make it a full clone by default. And brilliant, we've got our new virtual machine. Okay, do it again. Same thing, give it a new name. Check where it's going to be created, where you want it to be. Generate new MAC address. Next, clone. And repeat that process 2 more times for the LDAP server and the web server. It be. How tough can it be? Let's come back at 9:30. 31. Okay. Let's do that. Let's take a little break. Let's come back at 9:31 and pick up with the special steps for configuring the gateway. 5? Yes, 4 plus your 2 clone machine. Okay. Yeah, just to clarify what we need here. All right. To clone, we're not going to do anything more with it. We just leave it there as kind of insurance in case something goes haywire. We can quickly recover a server that somehow gets corrupted if we use this red X to close it down, or that power brownouts or something. Okay. The base conf, again, we're finished with that. It's on the website. If you want to get rid of it, you can download it later, or you can just, archive it someplace where, but we shouldn't need it. If we've got a 2-clone server ready, then we don't have to go through all of that again. That's what our 2-clone server is for. That's why we want to leave it there. There's nothing more to do with it now, but that's our insurance policy, so that we're not going to have to go through all of that partitioning the disk and laying down the file system and installing the bootloader routine. Yeah, remove it. No. Remove the base conf. We're finished with that one. All right. We've got to think about these as gold circles that we into and out of a drive. All right. We're done with the essential operating system configuration. Okay. And what we need to do now is take our gateway, mail server, web server, and LDAP server, and get them configured with the specialized software that gives each one its specific role on the network. Right? Because what we're doing when we clone is just making blank ones, all right? And once we use the conf.iso, that's when things get colorful and we can start to do some serious configuration here. There we go, finally. All right. So let's ditch the camera picture here and carry on a little bit. All right. Now, the gateway, since the gateway is at a central point between all of our subnets, it takes a little bit of extra configuration. All right. And that extra configuration is detailed here. Configuring the gateway. Since it's the one that links all of our subnets, it needs extra network interfaces. All right. Adapter 1 is a special case. 2, 3, and 4 are the ones that actually manage the communication between the subnets. All right? When we look at this picture, which we see all the time, all right, the bridged adapter is for accessing the internet at large, all right, and the other 3 adapters, again, this is automatically configured, so it makes it a kind of an assumption in our pre-configured network, all right, that the web server is going to have an address that is 56 dot something. Mail server is going to have one that's 76 dot something. LDAP server is going to have one that is 66 dot something. And in the DNS mask configuration files to define the pool of IP addresses, these are given names. Again, names versus numbers. All right, these are given names, and 56 called net A, net B, subnet 66, and net C, subnet 76. We're going to be seeing a lot of that as time goes on. So what we need to do here is, once we get our gateway VM cloned off, all right, then we need to get this one configured. Now, this first step right here, all right, this first step right here is all we need to do for the other ones, all right? For all of the other VMs, all we need to do is do set role and configure as, and pick the right one from the menu for mail server, web server, LDAP server. For gateway, we've got some special considerations that we need to take care of. And again, it saves us a couple of reboots if we do this immediately. You may think that's making life more complicated, but actually makes it a little bit simpler. Yep, correct. Just carry on cloning, manufacture them, stamp them out, all right, so that we can get on to giving each one its individual personality. Let's back up on this one. And these two are the special steps here for the gateway. All right. Mail host, web server, LDAP server. It's just pick off the proper role and reboot. All right. But the gateway, we need to spend a little bit of extra attention on this one. I wish I could make that go away, and I can't. I don't know why Teams has to do that, but it does, it seems. Which one is this? It's the one we're after? I think it is. Yeah, no, that one is the one we're after. Okay, hold on a second. I'm trying to get this to work, and it won't. All right, let me back this one up. This one's got some subtitles on the bottom. When I use the pause button, it interferes with reading them. All right, but, you know, let's carry on with what we've got. Let me try to readjust this to get it properly centered on the screen. All right. Back up here. Okay, so this video picks up just where the last one left off, all right? I only cloned 2. You need to clone the other 2, but, you know, why waste video space on that, all right? Since I put the MyTyConf in this one, when I cloned it, it's going to be in this one. Okay, no extra step there. All right, everything is the same. But first thing I need to do is get these extra network adapters set up, all right? Because the gateway is the midpoint in our network, the center point in our network. So I need to come down here, that big orange icon, settings and network. All right. There we go. And I've got adapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. So what I need to do is go through and check each one of these. And then 2, 3, and 4, I want host only. And adapter 1, I need to change. Why am I doing that? All right. Because first of all, I need one for each subnet, which is a host-only adapter, 1, 2, 3. And then I need this one to access the internet at large. That makes it a realistic system. Right? If I was having mail coming in from Gmail or from Outlook, somehow it would have to come in on this interface that connects to the global internet. And the way to do that is with the bridged interface. All right. No new interface on the host system. It piggybacks on the active physical interface on your machine, the one that you're connected to right now. All right. But what's going to happen is VirtualBox is going to ask your ISP for a new IP address for this bridged interface on this VM. Now, here's the tricky part. Some people get confused about this, and never mind, we'll say this again. Sometimes this one will not get an IP address. It depends on your ISP and what they require for login credentials. Okay, so sometimes it will say no address assigned on this gateway ETH0. Right? It's not a problem, but we like it to have one. Right? But if it doesn't, it's not a problem. But that gives it full connectivity to the network, and we can actually use that one to contact our virtual machine from anywhere on the internet. The host-only interface is a different story. That one is just playing around with the local operating system, all right? And that's why we can see it, all right? We go to Control Panel and look at the network connections, all right? We'll see the VirtualBox host-only Ethernet adapter here, all right? Just like every other Windows interface. If you look very closely, if you've got VMware installed, you'll see a corresponding one for VMware because it can do the same thing. All right. That's, again, a note about the Windows configuration. Let's set that one aside for a minute and focus here. Into the complications, let's stick with the basics. All right. So by default, adapter 1 comes up to host only, which is perfect for everybody else. But for the gateway, we need to do this extra step. Only for the gateway. Adapter 2, adapter 3, host only. Adapter 4, enabled, host only. And then we go back to adapter 1 and change its type to bridge. Now, just one thing. All right. What you see in this box here for the bridged adapter is the one that is active on your machine at this particular point in time. All right. So don't worry if it's different, because it should be most likely. It's very unlikely that you happen to be using a TP-Link wireless USB adapter at any particular point in time. Just to say, in fact, oh, I haven't done this part yet. All right, but I'm not using that one anymore either. So never mind, don't worry if it's different. Once we do that, all right, again, you can check it here just to make sure. All right, bridged adapter, host only, host only, host only, and we're good to give it a start. I think we're going to zoom through this part a little bit, because you've seen this before. All of those messages are just to keep us amused by not having a blank screen. Right? It goes by too fast, and they're only interesting to people who are debugging the kernel. All right? But you should be able to see all of these adapters up with no address set. All right? And this generic host name in the right here. All right? This is the official name in etc hostname. This is what you see again with your 2-clone machine. But once we go through the next step, this is going to change. All right, so I log in here, and then I get to the setup routine to install the software from the conf ISO. Base ISO, finished with that one. This one needs to be on the conf ISO. Oh, just to say, this looks a little bit different in VirtualBox 6. I'll show you this one in a minute. But that's how to make it bigger, and sometimes sometimes that's quite convenient. Root TOOR, there we go. MC, this is the MC way to do this. Enter on the 2 dots and go to Media and CD-ROM, right? And you can see the setroll.sh here. It's green star, so it's executable. Just need to highlight it and hit enter. And it comes up with this menu. All right. And this is the same for all of them. This is our configuration menu. All right. You just need to make sure that you pick the right one off this list. All right. Ignore 5, 6, and 7 at this point. They have their own specific reasons for being there. We'll get to that in due time. All right. But what you need to do is configure the gateway on the gateway VM and web server on your web server VM like that. Huh? You can shift. This is just shift with left arrow, right arrow here. Enter OK. Now, only for the gateway. On all of the other ones, if it says configure mail host, web server, LDAP server here, you just hit OK at this point. But for the gateway, stop and escape to return to the shell to do just a couple more configuration steps. All right. So for all of our other VMs, we want to let the system automatically reboot. But there's two things we want to do before that on the gateway. All right. And first thing we need to do is add a couple of new names into our file here, etc host. Now, we encountered the MC editor when we did first things first and configured Telnet. So, you know, we're getting a little bit of practice here on some of these common jobs. All right. But what we need to do is just add .tinynet.edu in two places in this file, etc hosts. All right. And the other thing we need to do is delete this file, etc resolve.conf, and then edit this file called etc dhcpcd.conf to just add in these words, resolve.conf, comma, and save, exit, and reboot. And we're all done with the special configuration for the gateway. All right, so press on anything except configure gateway. OK is the right thing to do here. Escape is what we have to do for just and only for the gateway. That takes us back here. We move up and 2 dots and enter. Once again, get to etc. Shift down a little bit past all of those directories and etc hostname. Okay. Don't need to do anything there, actually, just tourism. GH, you got to know your alphabet. etc host, F4. All right. And check this out. All right. Host names with no dots should be avoided because they do not resolve consistently. There's 2 system libraries. One's called getHostName, and one is called getHostByName. And they act differently. And you never know which one your application developer has chosen to use. And so sometimes a name like GW will work, and sometimes it will not, right? But a name like gw.tinynet.edu always works. So these are the 3 IP addresses that are assigned for interfaces with our subnets. These are alternative names that we can use, right, when we want to get to those. And again, we'll be seeing this in practice, right? And what we need to do is correct these 2 on the end, right? Put a .tinynet.edu on the end of both of these in order to make sure that we've got consistent and stable functionality. So, no big deal here. Just the arrow keys and .tinynet.edu. And same thing there. And F2 to save. F10 to quit. And one more step, but we're out of time. As it says on the bottom there, you can see my Screencastify berating me that I've spent too much time on this. So let's back out of here for a minute and back out of here for a minute and move to the next one. That's, oops, sorry. All right, so we've done step one in that video, and then there's a separate one because of the time limit. All right, to get this step two done. And after that, we reboot and we're golden with the gateway. All right. And again, using MC, this becomes a very simple thing to do here. All right. Did that part. Now we need to do this part. F8, 2. So we just move down and find that file. Got to know your alphabet though. There it is, resolve.conf. All right. This is problematic for us. It's explained on the website there, but in practical terms, all we need to do is F8 and yes, and then move back up. Find that other one, D, there it is. F4 to edit. Then move all the way down to the very last line of the file. Lots of interesting stuff there, but we don't need to worry about it. Just park in the right place. Careful typing is required. Comma, space, and lovely, F2 to save. F10, exit the editor. F10, exit MC, and reboot. Or shut down if you like, all right? Doesn't matter which one, but that means that the gateway is up and, well, it's configured and it's ready to go. All right. Ooh, hang on a minute here. All right. All right, somebody has done this completely successfully. All right, that's what we're seeing here is the new host name after it was configured. We blew by that one, but we took a look at it in etc host name. That's the one that appears here. All right, this one has an address from the ISP. All right, for ETH0. That's our bridged adapter. Don't worry if this one says no address assigned. All right, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Depends on your ISP. 56.101, 66.101, 76.101. These are the addresses, the static addresses in the configuration file for the interfaces, all right? And again, the web server is going to be on this 56 subnet. And the Windows host-only adapter, like we saw a little bit earlier today. 66 is NetB, right? That's where we park our LDAP server. 76, NetC, that's where we park our mail server. Good, good, good. This is a success. This is a fine one. All right. Now, why does this one say no IP address set? It also still up here says mytivm.netv. All right, that's the generic name. This is what it looks like when you get the bridged adapter set up and your ISP gives you an IP address. These don't get set up until after you do the gateway configuration in set role. Okay? Oops, should have done that. All right. So if you see mytivm here and no IP address set, that's absolutely correct. You just have to get on and move to media CD-ROM, run set role, choose the gateway configuration, and these will, next time you start up, you'll see the 56.101, 66.101, 76.101 there. Okay, and again, that first one depends on your ISP. Right? You can't control it, I can't control it, so don't worry about it. Okay, VirtualBox will try to take care of that, but again, it's there for completeness. We're going to try to tolerate the uncertainty, and we won't really formally use it for anything, right? But you need to know that it's there, and it's expected to be there in our configuration. It's assumed that it's there in the configuration, and so it's important for us to have it ready. A bit like the swap file there. Okay. Windows Network Interface, NetStat for network statistics. Going to be seeing that one all the time. I think we're going to leave these for future reference, all right? Because all we need to do for next week, all right, is to get through the process of set role. Hang on a minute, where do I want to be here? I know where I want to be here. I want to be here, all right? We just want to set the role for each of our machines, right? We want to get the gateway part done here, right? And set role on the rest of them, okay? So that they're all ready to run. And then we need to do extra configuration for the mail server, the web server, and the LDAP server. And that's what we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. Right? That's what we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. So right now, all we need to do is get them configured in their role, and we really want to see them come up on their proper subnet. Okay? And again, the MyTie host name is the simple generic one. Once you do the set role for each of these servers, what? The automatically installed configuration files will put themselves into action, right? And you'll see the host name change. You'll see net B or net A or net C, right? And an IP address that corresponds with the subnet. Don't worry about this last number here. That's a random number from DHCP, okay? So the fourth one doesn't count, all right? 3 times 8, same, any. That's what defines the subnet. This 252 over here, static address for HTTPS, let's not worry about that today. We'll talk about that in, next time when we talk about getting the web server configured, right? After we configure the mail server. DHCP server in VirtualBox is off, all right? It has this IP address so that it is on net A, 56, all right? Gateway has a 56.101, so the web server can communicate directly with the gateway, all right? Windows can also communicate directly with the gateway because it's on the same, any in the net mask, right? And it can also communicate directly with the web server. That's where we're going to be interested in using it. If you want to see how this is done, in this file here, you can use MC and F3 to view this file, etc dnsmask.d dhcp, all right, where it defines in the configuration file here net A, net B, net C, all right, and then the range of IP addresses, 56.110 to 249, all right. So this last number here is going to be any number between 110 and 249. All right. DHCP will do its best to give the same address to the same MAC address. So it's likely that these numbers will be consistent for your installation, but it's highly unlikely that your random numbers between 110 and 249 will match my random numbers between 110 and 249. That okay? So this is the way it enforces. It's 12H out here is 12 hours. You got a 12-hour lease on the IP address. And the DHCP client, DHCP CD, oops, what's going on here? Well, the DHCP client that's running on all of our machines will take care of renewing that lease when it is appropriate. Now, this one on CNAMEs, we're going to leave that one for another day. Actually, I think we'll get to that next week, right? Because that takes a little bit more of a, it takes in a new aspect of the MC editor. Okay, now hold on a second. Let me just catch up with what's going on here. All right. Could not read from boot medium. All right. Yeah, I think somebody's giving you good advice there. All right, hold on just 1 second. Put hard disk first as boot order is 1. Very good advice. Yeah, hang on a minute. And make sure you installed the bootloader. Setup mbr.sh. All right. That one is in the very first pair of our videos here. All right. Prepare the hard disk. Okay. And there's a place there where we get to set up MBR. Just we got a minute, but sometimes there's one thing that people kind of skip over here. All right, here we go. All right, now right about here, all right, is where we're copying those files across. After that, you've got to be careful, all right, because both of these now have a directory called boot, all right? But if you go into boot on the CD-ROM side and try to install the bootloader, you can't, because CD-ROMs are read-only. You must make sure you're on the hard disk side when you go into boot to install the bootloader. All right? Tab, shift over, STA1, go into boot, all right? And then choose this setup MBR, all right? Because if your hard disk is already first in the boot order and you're getting this message, if it's already first in the boot order and you're getting this message could not read from boot medium, that means you made that little error, all right, when you were installing the bootloader here, all right? Once you get this added MyTyVM, reboot should boot from the hard disk, all right? If it's not, then that's where your problem is. Okay. All right. Yes, I will upload today's PowerPoint. I didn't have a chance because, ouch, man, we start too early on Thursdays. Yeah, it's not missing in Moodle. It just got done this morning and we haven't had a chance to get it there. Okay. So, mission accomplished for today when we get all of our VMs set up. We get through the setrole.sh, okay? And we can see them coming up with their proper name. LDAP matches LDAP. Ooh, what happened here? What? Web matches web. Yeah, it's not going to let me move over somehow. Ah, there we go. What? Web server, LDAP server, mail covered up, but that's the mail server. Gateway. Right? The gateway comes up with a whole list of IP addresses. As long as it's got a 56.101, 66.101, 76.101, should be great for us. We'll do a shakedown on this. We'll do shakedown on this this afternoon, make sure everything's resolved, and take a look at one curious and interesting and fun thing this afternoon for Lab 3, the patient intolerant Lab 3, and for our Monday Lab 4 on Monday, and move to the next step, which is configuring the mail server, the web server, and the LDAP server.